Who did pay for this trip?
This was an officially cleared, congressional trip, cleared on a bipartisan basis. Yes, like every other trip.
You didn't ask him?
I didn't ask him that because I know what his answer is.
Oh boy, where do we even start? It turns out Senator Van Hollen, he is on an Easter Sunday tour talking about his experience down in El Salvador. First off, now we know the taxpayers paid for his trip, but now we are finding out Van Hollen went all the way down to El Salvador and did not even ask Kilmar, hey, were you in MS-13? Nope, he didn't even ask him. So let's dig into this because it gets rather interesting.
You said that you talked with Kilmar Abrego Garcia for more than half an hour. After you returned on Friday, you told reporters that he was detained in Maryland, moved to Texas, and then flown to El Salvador. What more did he tell you about his deportation? And since he's no longer in the Secot Supermax prison there, what did he tell you about where he is being held now?
Well, Dana, he told me that when he was in Baltimore, he asked the authorities if he could make a phone call to let others know where he was and what had happened to him. And he was denied that opportunity. So very early on in this process, it was clear that nobody was telling him why he was being taken or where he was being taken. And that's the thing about this case, because the Trump administration has admitted in court that he was wrongfully abducted and taken to El Salvador, and yet they refused to follow the court order, the U.S. Supreme Court order, to facilitate his return.
Okay, just so you guys know, you can look this up yourself, and this is why things are kind of in the gray area. First and foremost, you can look up the SOPs, Standard Operating Procedures, of ICE. Here's what that senator is saying, that the ICE agents were not performing their SOPs as they're supposed to. This is because we have two different classifications of Kilmar. The Democrat, left-leaning side are saying he's an illegal immigrant. On the right-leaning side, the Trump administration, yeah, not only is he a legal immigrant, he's also a part of MS-13, which means he's in a terror organization, which means if you scroll through the SOPs, this means ICE does not have to immediately tell Mr. Kilmar why exactly he's being detained or even who ICE is. That is because it is in the favor of the Trump administration or the ICE agents. It's a safety measure. You never know who Mr. Kilmar is working with. You don't know what he has on him. He's on a different classification as far as how the ICE agents need to proceed. So you guys can form your own opinion as in who's in the right or who's in the wrong. I'm just trying to show you guys. I think this leans in the favor of ICE agents because even per this government document, when you go through the SOPs, they are under no obligation to immediately tell Mr. Kilmar what exactly is going on. Later in the process, though, they are.
Senator Van Hollen has obviously got a chance to meet with him, but he had to travel to El Salvador to get any information. Does that concern you at all? I mean, these are people sent by the United, I mean, in his case, sent by the United States, and not even a U.S. senator could get any information about his whereabouts or the condition of his incarceration without actually going down and making the trip to El Salvador himself?
Well, he obviously knew his whereabouts because he went there to see him. But you know what bothers me more than that is a U.S. senator traveled to El Salvador on taxpayer dime to meet with an MS-13 gang member, public safety threat, terrorists. I mean, in the meantime, the day before he traveled, an illegal alien was arrested for murder, were released to the streets rather than honoring an ICE detainer in his very own state. What concerns me is Van Hollen never went to the border the last 4 years on Joe Biden when he had a 600% increase in sex trafficking in women and children. You have a record number of no-inspected terrorists crossing that border. You had 250,000 Americans die from fentanyl overdose because of the open border. You had over 4,000 illegal aliens die making that journey, which is a historic record. What shocks me is he's remained silent on the travesty that happened on our southern border. Many people, thousands of people died. I've met with hundreds of angel moms and dads who buried their children that were murdered by illegal alien. How many angel moms and dads has he met in the state of Maryland? That's what concerns me.
Now, the Trump administration has really been hammering hard the hypocrisy, not only from Van Hollen, but other Democrats who all of a sudden really seem to care about the well-being of illegal immigrants. Now, one thing I want to say is this. It's not every single Democrat supports what is happening right now. There are silent Democrats out there, and you have Democrats who have straight up said this is the wrong move. In fact, CNN even spent the entire week showing polls. I made a video on it. They've never done this. The whole week talked about polls, how Americans do not support what Democrats are saying about illegal immigrants or the deportations. However, this next clip is rather interesting to say the least.
President Trump says that some of Abrego Garcia's tattoos signify that he's a member of MS-13. In 2019, police alleged a confidential informant claimed that Abrego Garcia was an active MS-13 member. His wife and his attorney deny that, of course. Can you say with absolute certainty that he is not, nor has he ever been a member of the MS-13 gang? And did you ask him point blank?
Well, Dana, what Donald Trump is trying to do here is change the subject. The subject at hand is that he and his administration are defying a court order to give Abrego Garcia his due process rights. They are trying to litigate on social media what they should be doing in the courts. They need to put up or shut up in the courts. Let me tell you, and I decided to write this down so I could be absolutely accurate as to what Federal District Court Judge Zinnes said about these allegations by the Trump administration. Quote, "No evidence linking Abrego Garcia to MS-13 or any terrorist activity has been presented to the court." That's where to litigate this. It's been litigated in many other places. So I'm not going to get into the details because the whole purpose of our court system is for them to adjudicate these things, not for Donald Trump to go off on social media.
Yeah, you're right. They have not, there hasn't been a court hearing for them to put forward evidence in the first place, which is your whole point. But since you were the one person to have met with him, and since this is a thing, you say on social media, it's what we hear from Donald Trump and Republicans every day, all day long, you didn't ask him?
I didn't ask him that because I know what his answer is.
Now, I think this clip speaks for itself. You guys can leave your opinions down below, but I even want to point out, even the CNN anchor is like, look, if there's one question we all had, and if there's any reason to be down in El Salvador, all you had to do was ask him the one question, because if this guy is not a part of MS-13, the entire Trump structure falls apart. Like I talked about with the SOPs, then this would mean all of ICE is going to be in big trouble. You have a lawsuit against ICE. You have a lawsuit against the courts. You have a lawsuit against the Trump administration. Because again, like we talked about, this guy was classified as a terror or in a terror organization. Thus, that is why ICE did not say what they were doing. So again, if he could disprove that he's not MS-13, which it doesn't seem like he even asked him about, or it doesn't seem like this senator knows, that is the main question you should be asking. I think this clip is not a really good look right now for Van Hollen and for Kilmar. I will leave it at that. I think you guys know what I'm trying to say. And again, I think the proof is in the pudding that even this CNN anchor is like, you didn't ask that question? Probably not the best move.
What did Abrego Garcia tell you?
He told me about the trauma he had been experiencing, both in terms of the abduction and the fact that he was originally sent to CCOT, which is this notorious prison.
Yeah, we've seen the
He told me
images.
how much he missed his wife and his kids. He specifically mentioned his 5-year-old boy who has autism because that boy had been in the car with him when U.S. agents had stopped them and handcuffed him and then taken him away. So he described all that, and he told me that he had moved recently to a new prison facility. So those are some of the highlights.
So what did Abrego?
Yeah, listening to Van Hollen explain all this, like if you're explaining how you came to be sipping margaritas with an MS-13 gangbanger who's lived illegally in the United States for 14 years before he was finally deported, you're losing, okay? You're losing. You're losing optically, you're losing politically, and I assume the people of Maryland are wondering, why doesn't this guy ever work as hard for us as he does for this guy who's down in El Salvador, which, by the way, is where he's from in the first place. Look, the Trump administration has a legal point of view. They're going to keep working this, through these different court cases. I think, macro view for me, The American people elected Donald Trump to deport illegal aliens. They especially elected him to deport people who are affiliated with very violent transnational gangs that we now characterize as terrorist organizations. I think he's doing his job, and I think the American people are behind him, and I think the Democrats like Van Hollen look ridiculous standing up for him more than they stand up for the people of the United States of America who are actually citizens of this country.
And like I had mentioned before, CNN really spent like the entire week trying to provide evidence and polls that Democrats, Republicans just do not agree with you, and actually the majority of Americans, not only Republicans, also a ton of Democrats are like, what are you doing in El Salvador? And Americans support these deportations.
Donald Trump's net approval rating on immigration. In his first term, he was underwater at this point. 12 points more of the public, in fact, disapproved than approved of the job he was doing. But look at where we are now in April of 2025. He's actually slightly above water at +1 point. This is very much unlike the economy where he was above water in term one and is now below water. On immigration, it's the exact opposite of what's going on. And more than that, the numbers have actually stayed pretty steady since January, since, of course, he came into office. A different way that we can look at this is compare what was going on under Joe Biden, what is going on under Donald Trump. And the way we can do this is on immigration, what track are we on? The right track or the wrong track? Back in December, just 14% of the public said we were on the right track. 62%, my goodness gracious, the vast majority said we were on the wrong track. Look at where we are now in April, though. Look at this. 45% of the country says we're on the right track, compared to just 42% who are on the wrong track. So the plurality now say we're on the right track when it comes to immigration. Very much unlike what we saw under Joe Biden, now under Donald Trump. The plurality say we're on the right track, not on the wrong track when it comes to immigration policy.
And I really want to applaud them and every member of the Foreign Service and State Department in El Salvador and everywhere around the world. I co-chair the Foreign Service Caucus. And I have a deep appreciation for what they do. I asked them if they had received any instruction from Washington to help facilitate the release of Kilmore. The answer was no. I asked them if they had made any attempt to reach out to him. The answer was no. So it's very clear that the President and the Trump administration are blatantly, flagrantly disagreeing with, defying the order from the Supreme Court.
All right, so as I make this video, it seems that Van Hollen is spending Easter Sunday going on all of these news networks to talk about what's going on. I think it's actually a smart move when you look at how Democrats are operating. Everyone seems to be home right now. Everyone probably has TV on. And why not? You're probably going to get the most exposure. Now, obviously, this is most likely going to backfire when you look at the data, but we'll see what happens. It looks like more and more Democrats are getting on board to potentially head down to El Salvador. So I'm sure we will be talking about this for a little while longer, probably until the end of the Trump administration's term, or Donald Trump is going to allow Kilmar to come up to the United States and then re-deport him and then send him to a country that's not even his own lands, which will be the Democrats' fault. So anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. He has risen. Thank you guys for everything. God bless, and we'll see you later.